Let's take a breath together. So our theme this month is respect other nations and peoples. This Sunday's is blessings as gratitude. And the book we're using is The Gentle Art of Blessing. And that's all paired with Ernest Holmes' I believe statement. I believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that I am surrounded by this creative mind which receives the direct impress of my thoughts and acts upon it. It would behoove us all to spend way more time in blessing, impressing that into law, than other things that might occupy our thoughts. What does it mean to actually bless something? I can tell you, being from the South, there's a way that you can use blessing that's kind of a backhanded insult. Let me just front off my whole Southern culture. When we look at you with a certain tone of voice and say, bless your heart, what we're really saying is you're dumber than a box of rocks and we love you anyway. I suspect my cultural police will be at my front door when I get home. To bless something means to consecrate it as holy, to recognize the divinity of it, to literally recognize the godness, the perfection, unconditionally. Now, I don't know about you, but there are things happening on planet Earth that I am challenged to bless right now, which reminds me that what I'm actually blessing is a person, not a behavior. Okay? We are not, none of us, we are not our behavior. But when our behavior is really out there, when our behavior kind of blows everybody back from the gate, maybe it's just me, but I often find myself challenged to see the divinity of the behavior. Okay? Anybody else struggle with that, or is it just me? Oh, good, I have company. One of the amazing things that we do on Wednesday night is we give ourselves permission to talk about our challenges, to really wrestle with, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. This is the inappropriateness of my thinking. How do we apply spiritual principle to this? How do I shift? We roll up our sleeves and do that work on Wednesday nights. And it really is an open field of safety to just come be honest. Because if we can't talk about where we are, the chances of us getting somewhere else are slim to none. Okay? It's kind of like if you're standing in Georgia and you're trying to get to Maine and all you're allowed to talk about is Nebraska, you're kind of stuck. Okay? So, you know, consider joining us for that. This is one of the things that comes out of the book. To bless means to wish unconditionally. That's a little too loud, Frank. To bless means to wish unconditionally total, unrestricted good for others and events from the deepest wellspring in the innermost chamber of our heart. It means to hallow, to hold in reverence, to behold with utter awe that which is always a gift from the Creator. That's a tall order. To hold in awe. I was blessed to be raised by a grandmother who somehow knew this. I don't know how. She, from everything I can tell, she may have been one of the original founders of Al-Anon, which might have had something to do with it. But she raised me with, I love you. I hate your fill-in-the-blank behavior, and I gave her plenty of options. And I love you. And so I was raised understanding, or at least raised with the opportunity to understand, that I'm not my behavior. It took me until my late 20s for that to register. But none of us is our behavior. Our behavior is coming as a result of a belief system that's operating. And oftentimes, the belief system that's operating is operating from inaccurate information. Okay? Oftentimes, I perceive people as a threat who are not a threat. They're actually just navigating their own messed up belief system. Could it be possible that we're actually not that different from one another? The navigation going on in my head is very similar to the navigation going on in your head. We just picked different Monopoly characters. Something to consider. This past weekend, down in LA, there was a lot of, what's the word I want? It was kind of like a movie of the evolution of my relationship with my father-in-law, and how it fits into this whole blessing thing. Because when my father-in-law met me, he met me as a female in a lesbian relationship with his daughter. And shortly after that, I began my transition, what I call my gender alignment, and he saw me as a fraud, and he was very clear about that. My job was to understand his process. My invitation was to give him room to have his process, to recognize that he's filtering his experience of me through a paradigm that was established way before I was, that it might take him some time, that he's trying to make these adjustments through Catholicism and through culture, and to simply continue to love him no matter what. Now, my own personal process, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't start off there. I started off with, I'm just going to treat him like a house plant. Okay? I'm going to love him enough to give him some water and some nourishment and give him some sunshine, but to keep a safe distance, because that's how I was navigating my own process. As time went on, without any conversation, something shifted for both of us. And I will always remember the day he was taking me out to the Air Force Base to hit golf balls, to teach me how to hit golf balls. And we pulled up to the gate. The officer at the gate asked for my ID. He leaned over and said, "He don't need no ID, that's my son-in-law." And I was like, That was the first time I'd heard those words. was the first time he had actually claimed me at any level as his own. We never talked about it. Didn't need to. And after that, our conversations began to shift to where he actually interacted with me as a son-in-law, talking about his thoughts, whether they were appropriate or not. And you know you've arrived at a certain level of being a son-in-law when your father-in-law engages in the most inappropriate conversations with you. None of which I'm going to share with you from here. As I entered ministerial school, everything shifted again. Because with his Catholic background, I was entering into a very special role in his life. Because he saw me differently, especially after I finally finished school and licensed. In his mind, I had a special connection that he couldn't have. Now, is it my job to correct him? No. He gets to have his belief system. My job, my invitation, is to love him right where he is, to bless him right where he is, to allow his belief system and his presentation to be just as holy and amazing as anybody else's. And our conversation content changed yet again to one that had depth and meaning that wasn't there before, where he began to share his inner processes that he would have shared with his own priest. Where for the first time since I had known this human being, he asked for prayer. Now, his Catholicism did not allow me to pray with him, but to pray for him. Okay, fine. Can I bless that? Or do I need to correct it? Right? And the whole point of this is to give a real life nuts and bolts example of how change happens over time if we will just make every moment holy. If we will consecrate every interaction as perfect. Ernest Holmes says this on page 204 of Living the Science of Mind. Our thought does not go out to influence people and things. Let me repeat that. Our thought does not go out to influence people or things. What it does is readjust our own consciousness, our own thinking, to include a larger and more harmonious field of action. We learned that we get our own consciousness straightened out. Things in our external world adjust themselves to meet our new and better inward awareness. Quit praying to change other people. That's not your job. Your job is to change you. And when we each change our thinking, it has to change the thinking of the whole. It has to. Okay? There's only one mind. There's no your mind and my mind. Okay? There's one mind. We each use that one mind. There's only one. We can't have your mind and my mind in oneness. That would require two-ness plus. Okay? We're all using the same mind. And that's how it works, that if each of us heals what's happening in our use of that one mind, it affects a healing in the whole. But if I'm focused on healing you, that is coming from a place of believing that there's something wrong with you, which really, if we get underneath that, is to say that I believe there's something wrong with God. Really? Is that really where we want to operate? And can that even be true? Can there be a point of wrongness in perfection? I don't think so. Any more than I can sit in darkness with a light on. Not going to happen. Okay? And so what's before us is to bless everything and everybody as a spiritual practice. When we say practicing the presence, we don't mean practice being present with God. That's not what that means. It means to practice being the divinity that you are. It means when somebody pulls out in front of you, you bless them from the deepest chamber of your being. You see their perfection beyond their behavior. And we extrapolate that out. Yesterday, there's such an upside to blessing things that appear to be something that we want to rail against. Before moving to Sacramento, we lived in Sonoma County. And I had an amazing job that I really, really loved. And some things went sideways in the organization. And an individual within the organization took some action because there were no grounds to terminate me. And that individual did not want me around because I told the truth and I did my job as the quality assurance and corporate compliance officer. And when things were not being done correctly, I called it out. Some people don't like that. So there was an organizational restructuring to eliminate the job I was in. I've changed quite a bit since then. When that happened, that was 2006. I have a beard now I didn't have then. I am about 120 pounds lighter than I was then. And I'm way freaking happier than I was then. And so I was doing a wedding up in Sonoma County yesterday, and in walks this individual. And I was like, well, as I live and breathe, and mentioned this individual's name, and they're like, how do you know my name? And then I realized they have no idea who I am. This is going to be so much fun. And so I introduced myself, and the look of, like puppy twist on steroids. It was, that's the payoff of loving this person no matter what. No matter what, of doing my own work to free myself from any resentment. So when that person walked through the door, I could just be in a place of complete bliss and joy and enjoy every moment that was right there in front of me instead of playing the whole reel of everything that happened to me and then try to do a joyful wedding. We do our work to free ourselves. It's not about the other person. I want to address this last piece, this idea that we somehow give our power away. You can't do that. It's impossible for you to give your power away. That is a psychological sidestep to taking responsibility for what you are believing into the universe. Because you can't give your power away. You have a belief system that is operating about you and about that other person, and then it shows up as something you don't like that you don't want to take responsibility for. So then we go to the default, well, I just gave my power away. Wrong. Not possible. If there's only one of us here, who are you giving it to? Just saying. Where are you giving it to? It's your power. You are using it to create this disconnect. It is your belief system that is being reflected back to you. You get to own that. Or you get to pretend like someone else is doing something to you. It will never make it true, but it will make it true for you, and it will keep you from your freedom. The same creative process that frees us enslaves us. Get that? It's the exact same process. The difference is, are you believing in your freedom, or are you believing the lie that you somehow have the capacity to give your power away to someone else who's enslaving you because you don't want or know how to own your part? Notice I said know how, because sometimes it's not that we want to. In fact, I have never met anyone, never have I met another human being who said, well, I just want to be miserable, so I am going to consciously give my power away and allow everyone else to control everything that happens in my life, including my experience of myself. So there. Nobody wants to do it. We're taught to do it. Okay? We grow up with the question of, well, who made you feel that way? Externalize my experience. Okay? No one else can make you feel anything unless they're touching you. Okay? Unless they're physically touching you. You get to choose. People can behave badly, and they will. We will. We. No one is exempt from poor behavior. Okay? We are human, therefore we misbehave. Just happens. But you get to decide what you're going to do with that. Okay? You get to pick. You can rail against it, or you can practice blessing the behavior and holding them accountable for the behavior. It's not an either or. No part of me is saying excuse bad behavior at all. Bless the behavior. Be grateful for the behavior. Be grateful for the opportunity to see divinity beyond a behavior. Because when you can do that, you can see your own. Most of us are struggling with seeing our own divinity beyond some of our own behavior. And so we start at home. Okay? I invite you to do some journaling this next week. Dare to dive into those behaviors that you have planned to take to your grave without anybody knowing you ever did it. And I'm not suggesting that you tell anybody, but what I am suggesting is that you do some writing about it and you explore that point of shame that is so deep that you want no one to know. And I invite you to bless yourself over and over again until you feel your understanding and experience of you to begin to shift. That you begin to invite, allow, and embrace the love that is your very breath to become palpable. To feel your own magnificence. And to keep doing that until there's no longer a desire to hide anything about you. Anything. Because you are magnificent. I want you to get that at a level that just keeps getting deeper and deeper. You are creation in form, surrounded by creation, formed and unformed. Your intelligence is its intelligence. Your abundance is its abundance. Your heart is its heart. How much more amazing do you want to be? The invitation is to stop blocking your own amazement, your own amazingness, because of something that happened 40, 50, 60 years ago. Let that go. Let it go. Because it's not still happening. Whatever you did this morning, not still happening. So the past is done. Let it be done. Bring your full attention to now. Because if we're focusing on the past, guess what we're recreating? Okay, let's go back to Ernest Holmes' statement. I am surrounded by this creative mind which receives the direct impress of my thoughts and acts upon it. Whatever you're focused on, you're creating anew. It's not the past repeating itself. It's your belief system showing up brand new. And we get to change that. So here's my call to action. Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind, page 435. So let us so live and think that we may retire in peace. He's talking about going to bed at night, not retire from your job. That we may retire at night in peace, knowing that no harm can come to the soul, that we may rise in the morning renewed in body and in mind with a brighter outlook, a happier expectation, and a clearer joy, looking upon all with love, condemning none, and blessing even those who seek to injure us. Let us learn to be perfect even as that divine being residing in the heart of all and overshadowing eternity must also be perfect. Let's take this into prayer. Recognizing that perfection, recognizing that oneness, that absolute source, activity, and form of creation. Recognizing that it is perfect peace, infinite joy, infinite abundance, absolute intelligence, that it is life itself, that it is light itself. Recognizing that all life is created out of it, by it, to be it, I must recognize that I am it in form, within it, that there is no place where it is not this one perfection. And so I must recognize that what is true of me is true of all life, all individualized expressions of the one. And so in this recognition, I can speak my word with authority, claiming and affirming that all are the perfection of creation. That back of any appearance, back of any behavior, is every attribute of divinity itself, knowing itself, being itself, expressing itself. And so I speak my word, claiming and affirming that every creation comes to that knowingness of its own magnificence. That I come to my own knowingness. That I stay in my own lane and do my own work, knowing with absolute certainty that as I align my beliefs with truth, it shifts the alignment of the whole, inviting others to shift as well. And that in the meantime, I love and I love and I love more deeply with every breath. And then I bless every form, every effect, every experience of creation from that love that only knows celebration. And as those words ring in my ears, I feel my heart open that only knows celebration. And so it is from this experience of gratitude, from blessing, that I can confidently release my word into the activity, into that impress that acts upon it. That aspect of law, the doer in the creative process that only knows do. So I let it go, knowing that it is done perfectly, without opinion, without alteration. With that confidence, I release, I let it go. And I invite you to join me if this is your prayer as we say together. And so it is.